Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Classy Neurotic Podcast. I have a guest here for Samender. Thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
What's up, Classy? Big fan of
So,
you.
first of thank you. Yeah, because I only have like 3 subscribers or something. I don't know. No one watches me, but it's fine. So first, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and yeah, why do you call yourself First Amender?
So my name is First Amender, and I call myself First Amender because I do like the First Amendment. There's parts about the First Amendment, such as the freedom of speech. Specifically, the government doesn't have a right to tell you what you can and cannot say. That does not, of course, extend towards private companies or other people like getting mad at
Right.
you or whatever. I'm very much in favor of that. I'm also in favor of the idea that I believe there ought to be a separation of church and state, which is something that's commonly forgotten regarding the First Amendment. And I think that's just important, if not more so, than the initial First Amendment clause. Um, I'm not a free speech absolutist, but that's I specifically why I called myself First Amender though was because originally I started a freedom-based blog platform called firstamender.com. By the way, I consider it a failed experiment. Don't go there. I mean, you can go there just for just sheer curiosity or fascination, but the entire purpose of it was basically for me to try to advertise my website, and I just gave up on it. It's just to start a social media site, you kind of need to have like people that will like be there constantly, and it's just very difficult to actually perform without being able to throw millions of dollars at it. So I just gave up that project. Now I'm just a YouTuber. I do I like to debate all sorts of different topics, and I largely come from like a Democrat background mixed with libertarian background. So yeah, that's why I'm called First Amender.
All right, cool. So yeah, I first met you when I did my debate for the first time. So I have like no debating experience or anything like that. I just started doing this and started to get into the debates. And the first time was on MDD. It was on Modern Day Debate with Rob Noor and Josh Zeter. And it was a little bit confusing for me because I didn't know who my debate partner was until very like last minute. It turns out it
Yeah,
was you. I was like, wait, the person who's my
classic
debate
modern
partner
day
is
debate
First
strategy.
Amender. That sounds like a right winger name. Like I'm sorry, like not saying that like left people on the left can't support the First Amendment, but typically when someone like uses some sort of constitutional name or something reference the
Yeah.
Constitution, it's usually a right winger.
No, no, yeah, I get you.
So
I mean, to be fair, right? I used to when I came up with a name, I was a right wing libertarian. Now I'm just a Democrat, so it's just like me having learned more and just but I still like the First Amendment. I think it's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. So how did you like do the whole like setup? Because I noticed that prior to your first appearance on Modern Day Debate, you have this sort of like partnership with the Discord at Modern Day Debate, and you have your own show that like people can just go in and debate you.
Yeah.
So how did you set that up? Actually,
So I used to run a Discord myself, like I ran one. I think I got it to about 2,000 members until I just gave up on it. The the amount
that's a
of
lot of
time
people,
that
by the way.
I was like spending like just trying to make the Discord work was just not like the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze, and so I just basically came to the conclusion that I should just give it up and let other people manage the server. um I stepped away from it because I thought it was just more healthy to do so, because it was just bad for my mental health to keep
Sure.
like being on that Discord. So I basically, decided to just kind of move off to another Discord, and I was already familiar with modern day debate. Like I enjoy listening and watching debates. And one of the channels that I respected was Modern Day Debate. And I realized that the Modern Day Debate had a Discord. And so I was like, okay, well, let me just go there and see what's going on. And, it was actually a pretty good place to be like for debating purposes. And so it just kind of fulfilled my niche. And I just kind of reached out and was like, hey, I'm gonna start promoting your guys' Discord while I'm running my show, like basically. And so they were perfectly keen with that. Um, and then to getting on the Modern Day Debate YouTube channel, like I just basically had to email James, let him know, like, hey, I'm here. This is what I do. And so, and I got invited.
Right. So why do you like to do like these debates though? Why not just spend your Thursday nights like, I don't know, playing Fortnite or
Uh, I find them entertaining. There's like a mix of things. There's like, okay, there's like the part where I find it entertaining. There's parts where it's like I like challenging like my own thought process. Like maybe I'm wrong about something and somebody is willing to like educate me on something and I learn that thing. I mean, that's happened a lot. Um, that and so I don't know. I personally I get the dopamine rush when that happens. So
and how do you like prepare for these debates? Do you just have to spend like a lot of your youth, like a lot of your life just debating? Were you ever in debate club in high school or something?
I'm going to be honest with you. I used to prep, and I've just realized prepping is not a good idea. And the
Sure,
reason why I don't prep anymore is because I find that people will preempt the arguments of the opposing side. And when they preempt the opposing side, and then you talk about the thing that they preempted with, it basically makes you look like kind of like predictable and not as good. So,
sure.
like from my perspective, it just came down to like you need to be able to fly off the seat of your cuff. You need to be able to like operate on your toes. And so if you just are able to like figure stuff out as you go along, I mean, is a prepped argument probably better? Yeah, probably. But I don't know. It's just not I don't know if it's like not worth it. It's just I just think that you need to be able to like approach an argument uh, the way that it's being framed at you versus like just kind of going off of like your pre-written sequence.
All right, cool. Um, you mentioned before that you used to be a Republican or used to be libertarian. Do you want to talk a little bit about your pathway from Republican to like Democrat?
Yeah, sure. So I was a Republican. I became a Republican because I hung out with my friend's mom, who was like a staunch Republican, and we would just talk a lot. Like she would just have Fox News on and listen to Glenn Beck, and this was years ago under the Bush administration, or we just what it really came down to was like she had all of like the classic right-wing talking points, and me knowing nothing about politics, I was just intrigued by the whole thing. And so tacitly I ended up becoming a Republican because she basically from 15 years old I was learning about politics and becoming a Republican, right? And it's like I was like, yeah, liberals, they're the devil, and Democrats, they're like the devil. And like they even had a dog that would growl when you would say Democrat. Like they
What? Oh
they
my god.
yeah, they really did not like liberals and Democrats, and they were just like they argued like conservative values, and it was just like that for a long time. For years I was just kind of listening to that, and then like there I was off like doing my own job, like just working. And one of the things that I liked doing was that I would listen to AM radio stations because they were commonly Republican. There was a show back in the day that's no longer on. It was called the Neil Bortz Show. Folks from Atlanta might recall this AM radio station show, but it was called the Neil Bortz Show, and it was basically a conservative, kind of a minarchist Republican that when it was very clear that he was like speaking to me, and but here's the thing, right? He called himself a libertarian. And I was like, I have no idea what a libertarian is. Like, again, this is like when I'm 18 years old, I'm just getting into college, and I'm listening to the Neil Bortz show, and I'm working for $15 an hour as a graphic designer. Like I'm getting paid nothing to just do some graphic work for somebody. And I'm listening to Neil Bortz. Um, and so then slowly but surely I realized that the Republican Party, they were very much not in a good realm for like the foreign policy of the United States. Like they were currently involved in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it was just kind of like this considered as this never-ending war. And it was like, why are you doing this? Like it just, there was just like Dick Cheney, just like very much in favor of the war effort. And it just didn't sit right with me. And so then I became a libertarian, like wanting like kind of a minarchist concept. Um, and that's where I started getting into like just reading a lot of like very pro libertarian stuff. That's where I started reading like the Mises stuff, the Rothbard stuff, the Libertarian Manifesto. I was reading Ayn Rand. I was neck deep in the libertarian stuff. Hell, I even like volunteered at my local libertarian party of my county just to like show how much I was in favor of libertarian causes. I was Thomas Sowell, all that stuff. I was so neck deep into it, and eventually, something happened where after I was reading libertarian book after libertarian book, that I was like, why don't I read the opposition? I'm gonna read people that are just more mainstream, right, bro? It did not take a lot of books to pull myself out of it. Literally just two books. One of them was Austerity by Mark Blith, and the other one was called Rage by Bob Woodward. These books, Rage by Bob Woodward, talked about the foreign policy regarding Donald Trump, and it made me realize that wait, the Libertarian Party doesn't actually have an answer for foreign policy. Like people aren't rational actors when it comes to like foreign policy. There are people where it's like they legitimately want the destruction of the United States as we know it. Like OPEC is not on your side, right? And they're not a rational actor. They're not there to be like, "Oh, let's leave the United States alone." No, bro. If they feel like that they can gain some power, they're perfectly okay with burning some stuff down in order for them to get power. And that's just one actor out of like dozens and dozens of actors. Libertarians, they have no answer for that. There's also the fact of Austerity by Mark Blith, where it talks about austerity policies and how it's basically unfeasible. There is like austerity is basically this idea that it's like, oh, if government gets out of the way, it gets better. Uh, and that the market just kind of can do its thing. No, bro. Believe it or not, the government is literally the largest customer in any country. And if the largest customer stops buying stuff and selling stuff, then what happens is that the market basically has like one less customer, which fundamentally makes it more inefficient. And this is just straight from like an economic standpoint. And it's like the austerity idea, it's like it never results in there being like an empirically better off economy. It literally just means it just causes a deflationary spiral. And when you realize that when government get out of the way, it doesn't actually solve the problems that people want. And that's why I stopped being a libertarian and went in favor of Democrats, because there was actual policies that would actually solve common issues like this. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. It's always really interesting to learn about people's like pathways and like how they used to believe one thing, what made it change into another thing. So I'm gonna actually check those books out. Not that I need to be, converted to the left, right to left, but like just to learn more for sure. One thing I've noticed has been a focus of your channel is the discussion of LGBT rights, specifically transgender people in the United States. In fact, your most recent debates were regarding transgender issues.
Yep.
Why do you focus so much on transgender issues?
I focus on transgender issues because I believe that a better society cannot be reached if it does not uphold human rights. The higher the level of human rights, the better the society. Like you cannot engage in proper market practices that allow the free flow of the economy, the invisible hand, if you will, to flow into the greatest degree without people being able to freely trade, free from harassment. And One of the people that I see as basically a minority of people that are being subjugated is the LGBT people, LGBT youth, especially trans people. And so I am very staunchly pro trans, very pro LGBT. I mean, it can be strictly from a humanitarian lens as well as just a market incentive.
So, have you read up on the recent Iowa bill that was just signed regarding transgender identity protections?
Is it one that's in favor? Because that would be a very rare thing.
No, it actually removes gender identity protections actually,
Yes, yes,
and
that's
it's
what
not
I
just
thought.
sports, but also removes basically transgender people like
Yeah,
ability to, let's say, use like the bathroom or like locker room of like their
yeah. It's
preference
it's it's
actually.
a sanctioned discrimination based off of the law. It's unconstitutional at best. All right, this is the 2025 anti-trans bill tracker. Anti-trans bills continue to be introduced across the country. We track legislation that seeks to block trans people from receiving basic healthcare, education, legal recognition, and the rights to publicly exist. There have been 11 passed, 581 active, and 22 have failed so far. So if you can look, if we scroll down, right, the type of bills is ones regarding education. It is aimed to deny students their name and pronoun autonomy, forcibly out trans students to their parents, banning basic gender identity education, among other goals. The number regarding healthcare, the number of bills seeking to prohibit gender affirming care, medical care, which is supported by every major medical association, has surged in recent years, and many seek to outlaw care for minors as well as adults, and others would impact insurance coverage and access for services. Sports bills targeted at athletics and K through 12 in higher education. They seek to codify sweeping definitions of gender and sex. Over one third of the states have already passed laws banning transgender students from participating in sports consistent with their gender identity. There are bathrooms where nearly a decade after North Carolina's infamous HB2 bill, bathroom bills continue to be proposed. The category captures bills that would restrict access to public facilities. And of course, regarding performance, there's so many bills that are specifically designed to discriminate against people on the basis of being trans. And mind you, right, I just want to educate for everybody to be aware that being trans is not a choice. It has a biological imperative tied behind it. It can be exhibited in the neurochemistry. It can be exhibited in the endocrinology. It can be exhibited in the hormones, right? These are things that are empirically verified. They do exist. And I can provide sources to show exactly that. And so knowing that being trans is a biological basis, that is something that they cannot control. And we are creating bills that specifically discriminate against trans people. It's horrendous. It's one of the most nightmarish things that I can imagine. Anyway, that's what I got for you there.
No, I think that like definitely like kind of like yeah addresses the point I was like bringing up, the fact that like so many anti-transgender bills have been either proposed or actually just like passed, and like just yesterday the Iowa bill passed, and it's very worrying because this wasn't as much as a problem, I want to say, around 10 years ago. Around 10 years ago, transgender people were just being assimilating into society. We're just starting to be able to be just seen just as anyone else. And in fact, even the Trump during his first term didn't said that he wouldn't have an issue if Caitlyn Jenner used the bathroom for her choice, whatever, in Trump Hotel. But now what we're seeing is this like drastic shift where they spent over $200 million just on anti-trans ads during the 2024 election. What's your assessment of like why there's this surge of like anti-trans uh legislation coming from the right?
I'm sure there's different motivations between each one, but I did read Ron DeSantis's book, How to Be Free or something. It was something along those lines. It's close to that. Um, Ron DeSantis himself uh, basically alluded to the fact the reason why he went after trans people was effectively, well, at least he didn't say this directly in the book, but based on what I had read, I came to the conclusion that Ron DeSantis had done it because he could be able to make a wedge issue to be able to frighten parents in order to vote for Ron DeSantis. He needed an issue to bring up that would get him votes, right? It didn't matter if it was pro anti trans. Basically, all it mattered was, can he make people afraid with this minority of people where their vote is effectively negligent? And can he get people to turn on them? And the answer is yes, he can, in fact, do exactly that. That is exactly what he did do. and he got the votes for it, right? It got votes to be anti-trans, and the end result is that trans people are the ones that are the ones suffering as a result. Yeah, that's at least why Ron DeSantis did it. I don't know what the motivations are for Donald Trump or the others. I mean, they could just be following suit. But regarding Ron DeSantis, I believe it was because he could get political clout off of it.
I think that's pretty valid. I definitely do see there is a sort of push for this, as it is an issue that a lot of people are just uninformed on, and it's very easy to sort of manipulate people into fearing the other.
Yes.
Another group that I've noticed that's also been sort of dehumanized is immigrants, and I was hoping if I you could talk a little bit about immigration in this issue, as this is basically Trump's bread and butter, immigration, and factors into like why he was elected in 2016, why he was reelected just this past year.
Yeah. Yeah. So regarding immigration, I mean, I've always upheld the idea that we ought treat people as human beings, given their own inalienable rights of life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness. These are things that are ought to be codified among all individuals, not just citizens of the United States. Currently, in the United States, we have a policy that if you are not a citizen of the United States, that you do not have human rights. Now, I know that that sounds like it's hyperbole. It's not. It really is exactly that. They can, for example, detain you for extended periods of time with no actual date for a court sentence. And this is if even you do it legally. They can physically separate from you between you and your children because you are not a citizen of the United States. They can basically detain you for an indefinite period of time because, again, you are not a citizen of the United States. Basic rights do not apply to you as long as you are not a citizen of the United States. So it actually benefits it not only that, illegal immigrants often get tired of having to deal with wanting to come into the country legally. It often takes years, FYI, to become to even get a green card, let alone citizen of the United States. What ends up happening is that these people are tired of waiting at the border for extended several years. Sometimes what they end up doing is they just go, screw it, I'm just going to cross the border. And then what happens is that they end up having to like either get a fake social security number, they get hired by some random worker, they're paying into Social Security as well as Medicare or Medicaid. They can't actually receive any of those benefits, and they have to be paying under the table because they have actually no legal recourse. It actually makes the United States money to maintain their illegality status. They pay more into the system than been taking out, and it actually benefits the United States to do so. And so what we're doing is that we're revoking human rights for a group of people that ultimately ought have human rights. They ought be able to have a simple pathway to citizenship, such as a green card, if they are not a violent offender. There should just be a simple way, so that way we do not take advantage of these people. These people are treated as citizens, or they're at least treated with human decency, and not physically separated from their children at the border. Yeah.
And what do you think are the biggest concerns right now in regards to like immigration policies put by Trump? Because it's a lot. I mean, we're seeing like these massive ICE raids. We're seeing people being moved to Guantanamo Bay. We're also seeing an attempt to remove birthright citizenship.
Yeah.
What do you think of all this?
It's a fundamental disregard of the problem. The problem is that it is a self manufactured problem. Republicans had decided that they were going to make it increasingly difficult to get your green card and green card status. And basically, the only feasible way to actually become a citizen of the United States is either you know somebody who already is in the United States and get married with them, or and get that sponsorship, or you join the military, or you show up as a refugee in a port of entry. Now, the refugee one, it sounds like it is the easiest one. It is not necessarily the easiest one. It takes several years. You often end up in what's called a diversity lottery, and I'm not kidding you. That's literally what it's called. You can look it up. You end up in a diversity lottery where, as a refugee, you might get selected to be able to get your green card status if you, of course, have all your papers in order. The process is, in itself is so complicated that even lawyers themselves mess up on the immigration papers because there are just so many papers that you actually have to uphold. So the end result is that these people just get tired of waiting several years, waiting for court dates. They end up just go, screw it, I'm just going to cross the border. That's why people literally risk their lives, because there are actual refugees. They have nowhere to go, and they have to figure something out when they have children. So they just cross the border. So the problem is not actually necessarily the illegal immigrants. The problem is the process that we use to deal with amnesty process or processes regarding the asylum seeking. So the solution is very simple, right? Show up to the border. Are you on the OFAC list, which is effectively a what? Let me pull it up. I just want to make sure I have it right.
Sure.
If you're not on the sanctions list, it's basically like people who are considered enemies of the United States. If you're not on the OFAC list, if you don't have any communicable diseases, if you are not on the no-fly list, and you're not convicted of any violent crime in your home country, bro, stamp. Here's your green card status, bro. Welcome to the country. Enjoy. Come work. Right. If there is a problem regarding, say, the amount of people that we can accept, then we could talk about that. But we're nowhere close to that. We're currently at a labor shortage, not a labor overage. So it would actually behoove us to get in immigrants as quickly as possible. And if it's easier to for them to become to get green card status and become citizens of the United States, then if that happens, then the reality is that people won't become an illegal immigrant, because honestly, it would be easier to go in through a port of entry. Fix the system. Don't like the immigrant is just going to go to the path of least resistance.
So one of the things I often hear come up with this sort of resistance to immigration or immigration policy is the fact that when the immigrants come here, they compete with citizens for jobs and housing, and that contributes into why housing is a lot more expensive in this country than what it used to be.
What it's expensive because of the lack of supply of houses. Like, you ever take your economics courses, there's a lack of supply of houses in areas where people will want to live, right? This is just a matter of creating building projects or creating subsidies so that way contractors can get to work and make some motherfucking money. That's I mean, that's just regarding the housing. I mean, if you have a lack of infrastructure, yeah, immigrants build infrastructure. What do you mean? Make it bigger, make it better. Like, what? What is this argument? Like, I just don't understand that. It's like, what, you think that the immigrant just sits there and just takes and takes and takes and doesn't produce anything? Immigrants often work harder than even locals. That is the case. You ever see that they're sitting there working the most backbreaking laborious work, and like, it's often jobs that natives or I'm sorry, rather American citizens, they would not want to take. So I just don't understand that argument.
Okay, sounds good. So I mentioned this guy a couple times already. Might as well talk about our favorite president. What are your thoughts on the Great White Hope, as Jesse Lee Peterson likes
The
to
great white hope. No, yeah, I mean, I think I've read a lot of books on him, both favorable and unfavorable, just trying to understand him as best as I can. I have come to the conclusion that Donald Trump is an idiot. He has no idea what's going on. He's actually a person who's an intensely dangerous individual. Should not be anywhere close to seats of power. It is sad that he currently is in seats of power. The concern that I have regarding him is that if you observe, and here, I'm going to share my screen again, real quick. All right, so if you observe right here, this is the presidential vocabulary by grade level at the Flesch Kincaid grade level. You could observe right here, out of all of the presidents here that are listed, it appears Trump is by far the lowest in the Flesch Kincaid grade level scale. He speaks at a fourth grade level. That's what he speaks at, right? And because majority of people, many people, we've been eroding away at our education for decades, which causes Donald Trump to be speaking at basically a lower level that people can understand. And so people end up voting for somebody because, they look at a person like Kamala Harris. Well, man, she talk like she just talk a bunch of word salad. But Donald Trump, I get him. How often is it where you hear it's like, oh, he speaks like the common man? Yeah, bro. Anyway, we've been eroding away. I mean, I considered Donald Trump to be intensely idiotic. I think he doesn't understand anything. I mean, hell, the guy has a bachelor's in economics, yet for some reason doesn't recall the economics 101 lesson regarding tariffs. Dude, he can have an entire room of experts. He could have a guy like Alan Greenspan in front of him telling him how tariffs is not a good idea. He will not listen. He is just going to double, triple, and quadruple down on his idea. He had received his father's fortune of over $450 million of his lifespan. He basically was able to get loans that were very, very low interest. And then, because of his name alone, the Trump name, specifically Fred Trump's name, be able to get multi-million dollar loans and have access to things that you normally would never have access to from ages 20 to 30. By that point, he had already been effectively a billionaire at that point, or at least self-assessed and self-aggrandized by what was the magazine at the time? I don't know if it was Time magazine or there was, I think it was Forbes, basically like falsely listed him as having over $1 billion by the time he was like 27 or something. It was mostly had to do with Fred Trump's assets. Obviously, though, Fred Trump's assets were not Donald Trump's assets. And because that it was basically popular to say, hey, was a rich guy of a really rich, a real estate magnate. Well, Donald Trump could basically just walk into a bank, receive multi-million dollar loans, and when it came to actually time to pay for that loan, what he would do is that he would get another loan from another bank and actually just pay off the loan with the previous loan, or with the loan that the new loan that he got, and basically just kick the can down the road. He had been doing it for decades. This is actually how Donald Trump has not had to pay taxes for several decades, and also why you don't even have access to his tax records, at least from a public sense. Though you can ask for some public bureaus for this information. He had been operating on a loss for several decades, and I look at Donald Trump right now, and the fact that we have our lowered our education standards for a very long time. I consider Trump to effectively just be a narcissist who is. Who's intensely stupid, was born with 1,000 silver spoons in his mouth, and there's a lot of people just eating his ideas up. That's what I think about him.
All right, so not a fan. I see. I think it's pretty interesting because one of the criticisms often laid on Democrats is their fear mongering of Trump and also Project 2025. But what we're seeing right now is the implementation of Project 2025 policies, as well as people who were authors in the Project 2025 document, now being in positions of power. Are you by any chance familiar with Project 2025 and its goals and initiatives and how it's affecting us?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that they want to do is that they want to remove what is it, the Department of Education. They want
Yeah.
to remove things like Pell Grants. They want to reduce the overall funding for schools, right? And the reason why is because they know that in order to get Republicans voted in, you need to keep your population nice and stupid. Wasn't it Donald Trump himself who said, "I love the uneducated"? You remember that?
It's a great quote. But, many people on the right say that, like, college education isn't what it's worth, that it's mainly just woke communist indoctrination centers. People
Yeah.
go in and study, I don't know, art history of, like, black women only to get a job as a barista at a Starbucks. Why should people go to college? Why should we consider subsidizing people's higher education? All right.
So here basically shows Measuring the lifetime returns of educational attainment using the discounted present dollar value. Applying a 4% annual real discount rate, the net present lifetime value at age 20 of a bachelor's degree is relative to a high school diploma is $260,000 for men and $180,000 for women. For those with a graduate degree, it is $400,000 for men and $310,000 for women. Overall, these findings convert significant long-term economic benefits association with college education. The estimated lifetime earnings by those with educational attainment in millions of dollars. You can see right here, having less than high school versus high school graduate to some college to a bachelor's degree to a graduate degree, you can observe that it is in fact much more money to those who make for those that do not have these degrees. In general, it is a lot better for you to be getting a college degree of some kind, and then now hold on. With that being said, am I poo pooing trade school? No, there's nothing wrong with trade school. If you feel like college isn't worth it and you can't afford it, yeah, go to trade school. Trade school is not a bad idea either, right? You can make some money in trade school. I'm not poo pooing it, okay? But to say that college is not worth it, you're wrong. That is fundamentally not the case. It just isn't, right? You just make more money by having a college degree as opposed to not.
I can actually speak from my personal experience. So I come from a working class background. I was raised under a single mother background. Went to the public school system. After that, I did my 2 year community college and then transferred to a state school. And now my bachelor's in biomedical engineering. And I actually like moved from my parents' house to my mom's house to live on my own. And now I work in my dream field, which is medicine and research. So I think in my particular case, education has helped me so much, and it's been such an amazing opportunity for me. I can't imagine getting rid of this for a lot of people, as I do see this as a way for a lot of working class people to have new opportunities to just not just like get a new job, but like really learn things about themselves, learn about the world, and really just make fundamental changes to like their lives that would just help them forever.
Yeah, completely agree.
So, do you think Trump's gonna really get rid of the Department of Education? I mean, they've been pushing this for decades, actually, but this is one of like the things he really want to do with Project 2025.
I hope not. I hope not. But I mean, if they do, yeah, it would be really bad. I don't know. I all I can say is I hope not. I don't know if they can or can't. They might. I don't know. I desperately hope that never comes to pass.
Sure, sure.
That's all I can do is hope.
Uh, yeah, no, I agree. So as we go through these 4 years, there's some hope that like maybe the Democrats can win the House, maybe the Democrats can win for the presidential election in 2028. What do you think the left and or Democrats can do during these 4 years to fight the goals of like initiatives of the current administration?
There's not a whole lot that Democrats can do right now. Um Honestly, like you want like I think we need to push for education initiatives. Like Republicans can't stay Republicans if they're educated. Like I'm just being honest with you. I just don't think that a Republican can maintain their position if they're uneducated. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, if they're educated. Is that crazy of me to say? It's probably a hot take.
Not at all. I'm thinking that like doing what we do and going online and talking to people. Like we, if we have one thing that's on our side is social media. Social media, of course, has its problems and partially contributed to the problems we have in the first place for our current administration. But it is a medium of we can counter a lot of these ideas and a lot of what's going on lately, and really just like be as critical as possible for the next 4 years and point out every single horrible thing that's been going on, even if it does feel like it is too much. at times. I mean, just this week alone, like I could have brought up like 5 or 6 stories we, could have like talked about because it's just insane. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's
yeah,
nuts. I mean, they were operating at a breakneck speed. Hey, you want to hear a hypothesis?
sure.
I can't say this for sure, right? And this is going with a grain of salt, but every single move that Donald Trump is making, he's acting as if that he's paid off by Russia. I'm starting to suspect it, and I don't have any proof. I don't. All right, so take it with a grain of salt. It's totally a conspiracy theory, right? And normally I'm not a conspiracy theorist, um, but Donald Trump is no stranger to getting deals that screw over other people but benefit him. Like he's done that in the past, and so why would it be any different for say like today, but with a larger scale of instead it's like the United States that he's screwing over for his own benefit of the Kremlin, right? The Kremlin might actually pay him money to like give them favorable odds. Am I crazy in thinking this?
Well, I never thought that Trump would not only call Zelensky a dictator, but humiliate him during a press conference with fans at his side. I mean, I was watching that while I was working. I was just like astonished. I was just, I mean, it's expected, but I'm still shocked regardless about
Yeah.
how just much those two just berated Zelensky during that press conference though. Like it was just horrible. And like finding out things that like apparently the guy who asked Zelensky why he doesn't wear a suit, because of course that's like super relevant to a guy who's like going through a war right now, is apparently major MTG's boyfriend apparently. And because they kicked out like the other like whatever leftist news media, of course they're going to have more pro Trump America first
AP News is
news
not a
outlets out there.
leftist news media. How
AP's
is
not leftist.
no, not at all. Not at all, not even a little bit. Like they're literally like the most middle ground like news site ever. Here, I'll show you. So if you look right here, this is the Ad Fontes media bias chart. The Ad Fontes media bias chart, what it does is that it looks at individual sites, right? And it determines whether or not that it is biased based off of the series of articles that it had through their independent review board panel, which is filled with both right wingers, left wingers, an equal amount, as well as centrists, right? And so they basically determine it. They do some fact checking on what is being said, and then they also determine whether or not that it is on the left or right. Interestingly enough, you see this really interesting, just beautiful parabola that happens where if you tend to be more center, you tend to be more fact based. Whereas if you're more on the left, right, like for example, you could see the Young Turks here containing a opinion or wide variation of reliability. Young Turks is very low on the list. Whereas if you look on the right, you've got, the Ben Shapiro show, the Rubin report, the Hannity, Louder with Crowder, and the worst of the worst, the Alex Jones show. Um, but you'll notice here, like under the ones that are basically in the fact-based, thorough fact-based reporting site, you'll find that there's your usual kind of like news agencies. And then, of course, we can look at AP, for example. AP is one of the highest reliabilities, as well as having just a slight left wing view. And by slight, it's very, very slight. It's almost negligible, right? And so, in a situation like this, you could see that it is that AP is a centrist source, and the fact is that AP was willing to post the facts, right? And Donald Trump doesn't like facts. What he likes is things that agree with him, and if the facts don't agree with him, then he seeks to get rid of it, a la Bob Woodward, a la AP News, a la any mainstream news site in favor of Fox News, in favor of your your Rubin reports and your Hannity shows and your Bill O'Reillys. And this is my problem. Do you see the issue?
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope that that helps.
I think there's a really interesting thing I've noticed about left versus right wing media. Whereas left wing media, especially like far left, tends to be pretty divided on the issue of supporting Democrats, of whether or not we support Harris or whatever Democrats in Congress and stuff like that. Whereas right wing media, whether you're a typical neoconservative like Ben Shapiro, whether you're more libertarian or whether you're quote unquote centrist like Tim Pool, they all pretty much like support Donald Trump. Even if they do something that they disagree with, they'll still like make some sort of apologetic for him as much as possible. And it's amazing about how cohesive of a support he has among the right that there's virtually no one I can think of on the right that gives him any ounce of criticism.
Sure,
Maybe
there
Ben
is Liz Cheney.
Shapiro every round then. Liz Cheney.
Yeah, Liz Cheney.
She
There's a
lost
lot
to
of like
Rick.
old school Republicans that just don't. They just like you know, the austerity argument, right? And they're just like market Republicans, but they're just like not on the populist Trump train.
But I
Well,
can't think of like any popular right wing commentators that's remotely critical of him. Besides maybe I don't think Liz Cheney has a podcast.
no, no.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, majority of people are in support of Donald Trump if they're a Republican. Like if you need to be a Republican, you have to fall in line, basically.
Okay. Do you want to maybe talk about a little bit of Ukraine for a little bit,
Sure.
and at least just gave us like just a little bit of like why United States should support Ukraine with the ongoing conflict?
Yeah, so the United States should support Ukraine because we, as the United States, are dependent on all other countries around us. We are the richest country in the world because we've established diplomatic foreign relationships with various countries and established beneficial trade deals that benefit the United States. We can't actually enjoy our high quality of living status without effectively trading with other nations, right? Be it third world, second world, first world. The more trade that we are able to create and the more trade deals that we can create in favor of the United States, the better the United States gets as a result, right? In the United States, for a very long time, since the entire 20th century, had pushed for very strong trade deals. We have pushed for, say, things like the United Nations, the World Health Organization, all sorts of global economic policies that ultimately, at the end of the day, benefit the United States directly. And by supporting Ukraine, right, what you're doing is that you're going against an authoritarian regime that is fundamentally opposed to the United States and basically making it a country that is America centric, or at least America first. And in which case, they basically become another trading partner, completely beneficial to the United States, right, and not beneficial towards our enemies such as Russia. Russia does not have your best interest at heart. They run hacking campaigns on the daily on the United States. They do it all the time. And yes, it is sponsored by the Kremlin. It is sponsored by the Russian government. If we support Ukraine, then they're an ally of the United States. And because they're an ally of the United States, well, guess what? That benefits us. We win when our enemies lose. This is not difficult.
Okay. Just a couple more things as we come to a closing. I noticed that when you ever you do your debates, you like to call your detectors as chuds. You want to like touch on that?
Yeah, dude. Okay, so chud is basically, it's a slang term that's referring to hyper, basically somebody who's like hyper right wing, basement dwelling, kind of like antisocial type person, where like they basically just like, let me see if I can get like a really good definition of what I mean by a chud. Hold on. It initially comes from a movie in the 1984 movie called Chud. It is called it's cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller, but basically uh, it's a conservative Republican who is racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic, fascist, a bootlicker, or all of the above. So something along those lines is basically like imagine like your right wing, 4chan poll board, basement dwelling people that are just like antisocial and hate people that are not a WASP or white Anglo Saxon Protestant. That's a chud.
All right, sounds great. And do you have any message for the chuds out there?
Um, Fuck you. I'm coming for you.
Alrighty then. Well, thank you for Samender for coming on the show. If you guys want to check out for Samender, I'll leave a link to his YouTube channel. I'll also leave a link to the MDD Discord server. You can always go and talk to them when he does his show on Thursdays. And yeah, thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Swiggity swooty. I'm coming for that booty.
Um,
That was for the
all
chuds.
right,
Sorry.
perfect. No, sounds great. Until then, stay classy.
See ya.